It's a feeling that I've never experienced before. I'm literally so excited to get up in the morning. It's such an excitement that I've never had in any career or job that I've ever had. It's just indescribable.
Welcome to the Holistic Career Change Podcast. Spoiler alert, we don't discuss conventional, linear, boring career change here. This is the place where we talk about finding an aligned career path that feels like an extension of who you are, where you get paid for being yourself. Forget personality quizzes, soul-crushing scrolling on job sites, and breaking your brain trying to find your why. Join me and many other career changers who've changed their career holistically by first defining who they are at their core and then using this blueprint to design a fulfilling career or business. We use the mind-body-soul approach, and we take into consideration the complexity and multidimensionality of all that you are and want to represent in the world. This is where purpose-led careers are born and built. I'm your host, Vilma Oseita. Let's go. Hi, friends. How have you been? As I was thinking about recording an introduction to this episode, I really kept coming back to this one thought. How brave it is to completely pivot when something isn't working anymore, whether it's careers, which is the subject of this episode, whether it's relationship or any other circumstance, like genuinely brave. And I don't mean Instagram quote brave, but really just gut-wrenchingly sleep-losing and what the hell am I doing brave, that kind of brave. And because this is my line of work and I am in it all day, every day, I feel like I sometimes need to just pause and marvel at the magic and the courage of all of you career changers. Career changers like Alexis and Catherine, who are my clients, and they're also my guests on this episode. And they were both part of my career change program and have graduated from the Holistic Career Change group. And honestly, watching their transformations have been really one of those experiences that reminds me exactly why I do this work. I don't usually doubt my purpose, but I feel like when I get to chat to ladies like Alexis and Catherine, it really hits home and it's deeply personal and rewarding and just heartwarming for me. And I hope that that's exactly what you'll be feeling as you listen to this podcast. Both of them, alongside their cohort sisters in the group, they went through this beautiful, messy, and sometimes really uncomfortable process of uncovering what aligned business actually looked like for each of them. And it really wasn't all sunshine and rainbows and excitement and expansion. Okay, oh my goodness. We really get raw and real in this episode. Catherine is going to share what it felt like to know that her PhD that she worked so hard for, like that PhD path was slowly becoming more and more misaligned. And, that terrifying and also exhilarating process of choosing her suppressed creative side over that sort of academic or corporate quote unquote safety. And she'll also tell you exactly how she turned what felt like this fuzzy whisper and idea into a cornerstone of her business, a business that now energizes her. And Alexis, she's going to get real vulnerable and share about how embracing her spirituality went from perhaps at first feeling like a little bit of a secret to becoming her actual superpower in her corporate career and in the business that she's building. And that transformation is honestly just incredible. We also dive into one of my favorite parts, which is signs and synchronicities that both of the ladies experienced that were showing up for them. Those moments when the universe just basically grabs you by the shoulders and just say, pay attention. This is the right direction. This is for you. And we also talk about group dynamics because that's something that I'm fascinated by, and how being witnessed by their group sisters gave them the courage to actually lean into this process more and to ask for support and to be held. And they also will share, the messy middle part of the career change that I feel like not a lot of people talk about, and what it actually feels like when your work starts to align with who you really are. I love having my clients on the podcast because I feel like sometimes, when I record episodes, it may feel like I'm just living in la la land, promising people this promised land of like, yes, it's possible. You can love what you do and you can earn the money that you want. And it's when I really bring in these people who went through the process, I feel like that's when hopefully many of you can build on this belief and start believing that this is something that's possible for you as well. And as per usual, I will invite you to listen to the episode till the end, because at the end, they do share some advice that might hit you right in the feels, especially if you're sitting there right now feeling stuck and burnt out, or like you're living someone else's life, because they've been exactly where you are, and they're going to tell you the truth and what it really takes to change course. I so deeply, sincerely hope that you'll enjoy learning more about these two magical humans. I hope that you feel held and understood listening to their stories, but most importantly, I hope that you get inspired to start your own exploration journey, because in case no one has told you that today, you deserve to have work that lights you up, that feeds your soul and feeds your bank account, not work that dims your spark. That's something I want you to always remember. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in. Hi, Alexis. Hi, Catherine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
I am so excited to have you all. I'm very curious how this energy is going to come together with all three of us. Every time is like a surprise. Well, for those of you who are into human design, so we have a beautiful manifestor and a beautiful projector. So that's why I was curious how this energy is going to go. So maybe let's start at the beginning. Could you please briefly introduce yourself before we unpack all of the unfolding that you just went through? So maybe I'll start with Alexis, and then Catherine with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So my name's Alexis. I've been in the fashion industry for over a decade now. That's my current corporate job. And I found Vilma through social media and her podcast and felt so called, because I was at a time in my life where I was looking for career change. And as soon as I saw her post, I knew it was meant for me. I've been on my own spiritual healing journey myself. So as soon as I saw her post, I knew that it was something I wanted to gravitate towards. So I'm someone who loves spirituality, anything healing, wellness, and fashion, obviously. So all that good stuff.
Great. My name is Catherine. I am a mom of two. My husband is in the military, and I found Vilma through social media also. You randomly popped up, like randomly popped up on my Instagram. And at that time, I was really trying to find what I was meant to do and my purpose. And I just felt so lost at the time. And it was actually crazy when I saw you and just how I was feeling at that time, and just everything just kind of really came together at that time. And I was just so thankful for that.
Mhm.
And I've been in the dental industry for 15 years now, maybe a little over 15 years. And I've always had this side of me that's been very creative that I've kind of just been pushing away. And then what we've discovered was that's what I really need to be doing, something creative.
Mm. I love that. Thank you so much. I find that with creative people a lot, but we're going to unpack that. And also, thank you for both sharing how you resonated with like this energy and this container in particular, because I feel like, and I talk about it a lot, how I love spiritual marketing, meaning that I will send energy healing on my content, and I will ask the universe to share it with the people who need it the most at the moment when they need it the most. So I hear so many stories like that where like, oh, I'm feeling really low. I was confused. I was scrolling at 3 a.m. trying to find my purpose. And then I saw, your ad or your post or I found your podcast. So thank you for reiterating that and sharing. And I know, Catherine, with you as well, we laugh a lot because you were asking for so many signs and you're someone who is so in touch with the universe. And I know even before joining, you were asking about signs. Do you mind sharing about that? Because I find it so funny.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's so funny. So, my husband laughs at me too when I say like, "Oh, just ask for a sign, like it'll give it to you." And he's just like, "Yeah, okay." Like but for me, like I was saying, well, right before we met, I was just in such a lost state and I was just like, just give me some type of sign where I'm just meant to do something else or find somebody or something like that. And when I found you and we had our little one-on-one, like 15-minute like coffee chat or something like that. And just after that, I was just like, okay, is this right for me? Like, should I be doing this? And I always ask for a sign that's random, like something that I never see, like send me a blue flamingo, like something random. And so I was just asking for signs like that, and they would always show up. And then I'd be like, okay, I just want you to make sure that's right. So send me another sign. And things like that just kept popping up in the most crazy outcomes. And that's when I knew that this was some like a path that I was meant to be on.
Thank you. Alexis, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. So similar to what Catherine said, I was scrolling through social media and I commute into New York City for work, and my commute's about an hour and a half. And I've really been looking to transition into something that feels a lot more aligned to me. I didn't know exactly what it looked like. A couple years prior, I did try to launch my own physical product business, which once I did that, I realized that wasn't truly in alignment with where I wanted to go. And as I continued through my current job, I kept trying to think of different avenues of things that I wanted to do. And I knew something that would incorporate spirituality. And as I was going through Instagram, Vilma popped up randomly as well. And her post just found me. And I remember reading through it and then listening to an episode of your podcast and then looking at the website for the holistic career change group. And after reading it, there were so many things that called to me. I absolutely love human design. I love astrology. And in it, you talked about building your own blueprint and obviously incorporating like your intuition and spirituality, which really spoke to me. I went home and pulled an oracle card. And when I pulled it, I think I pulled two. One said, be open to saying yes. And the other one said something about following your blueprint. So as soon as I saw that, I just felt so connected and I just knew that it was meant for me.
Goosebumps. You never told me that. I never knew that. I love how literal it was as well. Like say yes and then blueprint. Thank you, universe. Thank you, spirit guys. Okay, so now that we're talking about the before, could you both of you just paint the picture? I know both of you still are in your careers, but you're also on the side building launching your businesses, your aligned businesses. But can you share a little bit more what it felt like for you in the careers that increasingly were starting to feel really misaligned? And that's the reason why you were looking for help, support, signs. What was it that you were experiencing? And the reason why I always ask my guests to talk about that is because there are so many people who are listening to the podcast who might be feeling that right now. And I feel like sometimes just painting the picture makes you feel like I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. Someone else felt like that. And also there are ways how to actually find more clarity and alignment. So I feel like that just gives so much hope and healing.
Sure, I can go. I it's funny after going through all this, when I look back from, I don't know, like my early 20s, I've always had this feeling of I was meant to do something on my own. I just didn't know what that was. I was very vocal since, gosh, high school, maybe even before that, I've always wanted to have my own business. But as I look back at where I've been, it just wasn't the right time. So it really started to come out after my daughter was born. I don't know how to describe it. It was almost kind of like an itch that just wasn't being scratched, or just like a voice that just kept getting louder and louder after so much time. So I just remember after having my daughter, it was there and it was becoming louder, but being in the dental field, I was like, okay, well, what can I do in the dental field? Maybe I just need a bigger role. Maybe if I go into corporate, maybe I can just work my way up that ladder. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be. Because once you're in a dental office, if you're not in corporate, you're capped at how far you can go. So I thought maybe that's what it was. And then I just remember I went into corporate, worst experience that I've ever gone through. And I was there for 3 months and it was hell. Just not for me. And I remember after I left that job, that feeling was just even more like wanting to just like burst. And I just didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what it was. So I went through so many different ideas, but still on the management side of dental and just thinking like, okay, well, that's what I've been doing. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm good at it. Let's just try to go through it. And I just remember trying to start that up. And it was just so hard for me to make decisions. It was taking me months to just say, okay, well, maybe I'll do this instead. Like, or I'll do a course with this. Like, no pun intended, but it was like pulling teeth. Right before I met you, I was at my peak frustration, just lost feeling, almost kind of like it's like you just want to scream. I didn't even know what I wanted. I didn't even know how to voice it to people. And I was so frustrated with being military and moving. I was constantly having to find new jobs, but I ended up working with my dad remotely, which is amazing. It's honestly amazing as best as it could be. But at the same time, I was just so sick of being judged by my resume. And that's when you popped up. And then it's just been great since then.
Why do you think it was so hard for you to make those decisions? Was it because you just didn't have clarity? Was it because you were listening to other voices? What was that about?
The funny thing when I look back on it was every time I would talk to my mom, she would always say, you need to do something creative. That's in you. You need to do it. And I just didn't know what that was. She was always saying, you need to get back into your art because I did some art in college. She's like, get back into that. She's like, you have such a creative outlet that needs to be let out. So it was like there in front of my face the entire time, but I was still in the mindset of that I need to be in a traditional job. I need to be working my like that way up that ladder or getting to some top. I was so lost, I didn't even know where to begin.
Hmm. What I'm hearing, there are so many beautiful themes. Like one of them is like you knew that deep down, you kind of sense that it might be something creative, but you never fully gave yourself permission to explore it because you were looking at the conventional paths and couldn't find a place where you would fit or you would be excited about. And still, right, with your background and having that educate, remember, like one of the things that we were working on reframing for you was just the education and you having like PhD. And one of the pieces where you're like, but I have PhD. I feel like I need to use it. And I feel like that is what so many people could relate to, the ones who have amazing degrees and paid a lot of money for it and put a lot of effort in it. And it feels almost I don't want to say rude, but it feels shameful maybe, or there is guilt around leaving that behind.
For sure. Now that I look back on it, so I have my PhD in health science, public health, and management and policy. Looking back at it, I had that feeling going through it that I don't think this is for me. I was feeling that, but I was suppressing it so much that I was like, you're going to go through this no matter what, and you're just going to do it and you'll do well, like just going through all these thoughts. Then as like years started like coming by and I wasn't really using it. I was using it in the dental fields, but something still felt off. And I didn't want to talk about it because I was like, who goes for their PhD, spends all this money, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know if I want to use it. Like, nobody does that. And I knew that I was probably going to get so many questions and like about it. Well, like, oh, this is probably just a phase you're going through. Everybody goes through it. You're constantly moving with the military and you can't really use it or, get those roots started, or something like that. So it was kind of one of those things again where I didn't know how to voice it because I was figuring that out on my own. And when we met, that was one of my hardest things that I had to get over was accepting that maybe I don't want to do the whole PhD thing anymore. I could take aspects that I like of it, but honestly, I could tell you some of the courses. If you told me that I took that class, I'd be like, "Are you sure?" Like, I don't know. I don't know if I took that class. But now that I realize everything that I've gone through, it just wasn't an aligned career, or the educational part of it just wasn't for me. What we talked about is it was a great chapter of my life, but that part of it's closing, and I'm taking part of that with me.
Thank you for sharing. And again, I think that's so relatable. A lot of us, the reason why I think it was harder for you to move forward is because you were clinging and you were attaching a story and a meaning to your education, right? And really was not accepting that this chapter is ending, is about to end, and it's safe. You're allowed to go into the next chapter. And I feel like for you, it was thought work, I think, and belief work that really helped you to kind of remove that emotional glue towards that. And again, you can, if you want to, you can come back to that. Like something that, again, when we go through these changes, we go into black or white thinking and we're like, oh my gosh, if I start a business, I will never be able to go back into dental field. And, my PhD is going to be like void and they will reject me forever. I'm going to be blacklisted. They're like, no, listen, if you really want to, you can always go back. So it really is not that traumatic. But we need to go through this process and really unpack some of these beliefs to be able to be in the space of acceptance where I'm here that you are now. We're like, yes, it was a great chapter. And there are things that I take away. And there are things that there are, aspects, direction that I need to change. And that's life. And I'm okay with it. I love that. Thank you so much. Alexis, I'd love to hear from you. What was it like for you? Maybe to some extent still is that you feel comfortable with sharing.
Yeah, of course. So for me, I think similar to Catherine, I always kind of felt like I had a higher calling that I was meant to do something else and to do something more. Um, and when I went into college, I kind of made the decision I either want to like help people and be some type of therapist, or I want to go into fashion, which are like two very different avenues. And once I started in fashion, I always use the phrase bloom where you're planted. And that's exactly what I did. I started in the brand store and I worked my way up until I graduated college, ended up in the corporate office. And from there, I continued to grow and evolve as I went into different roles, became a manager, became more senior. And I really did do enjoy that aspect. I like growth, but there always felt like there was something missing for me. And I think a big part of it too is that I always just felt called to have more freedom in my life. And that was a really big theme for me, wanting to be able to create my own schedule and really focus on things that are meaningful to me. Because I think that's one of the biggest pieces that can be missing when you're in a corporate world. You're working so hard, endless hours, you're working late, you have these huge projects, these deadlines. And a lot of times people aren't very compassionate or empathetic. I am lucky where I work. I have, a great team of people who feel like family, but that's not always the case for everyone else. And especially when situations are really high pressure, you can feel the burnout. And I think for me, as I mentioned prior, I did try to create a physical product business where I was selling on Amazon, but that just felt completely out of line. So I knew I needed to find some other avenue. And simultaneously, that's when I was going through my spiritual awakening. And I started to realize that I'm much more intuitive than I think I knew. And so many different synchronicities were happening with receiving different signs. And I always say I get signs through podcast. So anytime I was wondering something, or even with Instagram, like I had a thought about, okay, what are my next steps? I would tune into my Apple podcast library and there would be a suggestion. And, whatever I was called to listen to at the moment felt like it was really relevant. So I think for me, big signs were definitely burnout. And then just not feeling alignment, like I'm working towards a bigger purpose. That's really important to me. And I want to feel like I'm able to help people and help people heal because that's been such a journey for myself. And especially in the corporate world, one thing that I really had to focus on was building my own confidence because I always felt like I had this spark in me, but I really had to work to use my voice and to be comfortable being seen and being heard and advocating for myself and really stepping into my power and my leadership. Especially when you're a young female manager, sometimes you feel like it's hard for other people to take you seriously. So that's something that I really had to work through. So I kind of knew as I was making the decision that I want to do something different, that I want to be able to incorporate all the tools and things that I've learned from my past and help people. So that's kind of where I came up with the idea that it was time for me to focus on some type of different business that I had more control over and something that felt more aligned with me and my purpose and my passions.
Love that. So you kind of came in, I think, into the process because you've been studying energy work, I think, for some time, right? When you came in and you kind of knew that you would like a healing business. What was still not clear for you? Was it the approach, the modality, where you felt like I need a little more clarity before I launch?
Yeah, I would say I definitely needed a lot more clarity because as I described, I'm into so many different facets of it. Like self-development has been huge for me my entire life. Growing up, I was super shy and I always felt awkward, so I really leaned into self-development books. One of the first books that I found in high school was The Secret, and that has everything to do with manifestation. So that was kind of my intro into the spiritual world. And I really followed that principle, like your thoughts become things. And I learned to have more of a positive mindset to attract better things into my life. And then through that, I kind of went into different spiritual and self-development books. I'm a big Tony Robbins fan too. So a lot of what he does was very exciting to me. I love health and fitness. So I knew that I had the idea that I wanted to help women specifically. I just didn't really have clarity on what that would look like because I've relied on so many different modalities before. And I would say about a year ago, I started getting into the energy healing work. And I've always been into meditation and yoga, but this was just something different where I was able to really lean into using my own intuition and sending energy to other people and understanding how that also works from a business standpoint too, like in a corporate world, how if I had, anxiety before a meeting, I could use my different spiritual tools, whether it's carrying my crystals that ground me, giving myself energy in my, heart chakra or sacral chakra, um, using different tools that make me feel better to, get ready before my presentation. So I think it was more so just needing clarity on exactly what tools I would use and how I would put it together.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like you're such a great example of a light worker in general, but also the fact that a lot of light workers, we are so curious and interested in so many things that are like healing related in general, mind, body, soul. And I found that it often is a struggle of like, well, but I like, Tony Robbins, which is very sort of masculine and all about beliefs. And then, but I love energy work as well. So how do I actually make it make sense? Or where do I start? Or how do I choose like one or a couple of modalities to start with and directions to start with? And my answer is always usually that there are a couple. So there's primary and secondary kind of gifts or directions that every light worker has, and everything else can still be there, but it's more of like an accessory and add-on, but not necessarily like the main thing. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. Just listening to you speak, and maybe we already touched upon this a little bit as you look back through the process in general, even after you finish the process, it's been some time. What were some of your perhaps biggest challenges or biggest aha moments or breakthroughs that you had throughout the process where you're like, whoa, I feel like that was probably one of the biggest piece that was holding me back or that kept me stuck? Do you have an example or two? I'm curious about that because I bet that so many people could relate to that.
Yeah, I think for me, part of it, again, it was really having that clarity and then just also having the time to devote to the process when you're working a full-time job that's really demanding. That came up for me a lot because there were certain times where I'm, fully working through these big projects with big deadlines. And, you come home from work and you're just physically drained, mentally drained, emotionally drained, dealing with coworkers all day, especially if you're someone who's an empath like myself or energetically sensitive. When you're around a lot of people, especially in New York City, you absorb so many emotions. And I think one thing did early on was energy hygiene, which was a game changer for me, learning to ground and clear. And I added that into my meditation practice daily in the morning and at nighttime. That was huge. And that's something I still do today because you need to be able to get yourself remove all the background noise. That's really what I would say. It's removing all the background noise so you can be in a place to really focus and make the best decisions for yourself. So I think definitely the energy hygiene, because I always felt like I had an intuitive knowing that, I'm meant to be on this process. So it wasn't like there were gremlins from that. Gremlins, as Vilma likes to call it. So, like limiting beliefs, I guess you would also say. I didn't really have those. I knew that I was meant to be on this path. I think it was more so just removing all the background noise and other people's energies.
Hmm. Also, if I may add for you, Alexis, I think the big piece for you was also, even though you were obviously familiar with human design, but really honing in your design and seeing how open you are. And that's the reason why you've been so sensitive to energy and also, I think, boundaries. And remember when you would say, like, well, you grew up with sisters and you're so used to like sharing and asking other people's opinions. And the big piece for you on this path was learning how to set the boundary and be very mindful who you soundboard with, especially given your authority. Could you share a little more about that?
Yes, I would love to. So yes, very energetically sensitive. And I never really understood that until this process because I didn't really have language around it. But I do know I would go out and be around like certain friends, and the next day I would be physically trained and I would feel bad about it because, I love the people I'm with. They're so nice. But why am I feeling this way? It would almost be this guilt because I didn't really understand it. But then once we started doing this process and I learned even more about human design and about how open my centers are, it made a lot more sense to me that my energy is easily drained, especially depending on who I'm around. And that doesn't make them a bad person or anything like that. It's just needing to protect my energy and just having an understanding of, who I can speak to about certain things, especially something like this. And I am lucky where I have a lot of close friends that are very supportive and are great soundboards, but that was definitely a aha moment for me of understanding that I can't necessarily just express my thoughts around the things that inspire me openly and freely to certain people who don't get it, especially something so niche like spirituality. Not everyone's going to agree with that. Everyone has their own beliefs. So it's really important that you have the right people around you that you can speak to about that stuff. So that was a huge learning.
Yeah, because I feel like sensitivity is like a gift, but just like with every gift, there are shadow aspects of it, right? So what your openness really allows you to be sensitive and know how to speak to people and what to say when. But the other side of it is you are more prone to take on that energy. And so that's why that clearing and hygiene energetically is so important for you. And I think we even spoke, we'll talk about your business, but even as you work with clients, we even talked about like even being selective with the people you work with because you need to be very careful. And again, I don't want to say that like from scarcity or fearful based, it's more like intentional with the spaces and the people that you are with. Catherine, what were some of your biggest breakthroughs or challenges that you came across?
Well, one was getting through my PhD, like for that. That was a huge one. And also accepting that now that I'm getting on this journey and that I don't have to work for my dad's office. That was another big one. Going through that was hard because, I'm just so ingrained with, you need to do this, you're on this path, you got that's education, you have to do that. You're working at your dad's office, you have to stay there. And so going through that and the thought work on that was very helpful. Going through all of those, I don't want to call them negative thoughts, but working them out, putting it on paper, really going through like, okay, well, why is this holding me back? this is what I'm going through right now. Doesn't mean that, I'm a bad daughter if I leave. It doesn't mean that I'm, rejecting my education and that whole life. So it's learning through that process and even going through the human design was extremely helpful. I had never heard of it. I had just started hearing about it right before we met. Once we went through it, things just made so much sense, especially with me being a manifester and how I just generate ideas. Just, it's so easy for me just to do that. And I have my high creative moments and then I need my rest after that. And understanding that and understanding who I am as a person really helped me because everything kind of made sense, just how I made decisions and how I'd go through these peak moments and stuff like that. And it really helped me, I think, move forward and just like understand, you have this life where I thought that I was stuck like in and because I just kept thinking that, I'm about to be 37 and I'm just like, I'm just supposed to be in this dental world. Like I'm 37. I can't do anything different. Like, I feel like I'm getting closer to 40. I can't just change. So just going through that process and just the thought work and going through like what you would call the gremlins of letting those go and working through that coming overcoming those challenges was extremely helpful. It's helped me become more confident in how I make decisions and how I'm feeling about things and not suppressing things because I feel like I need to suppress them and really working through it. That's what really helped me.
Hmm. I love what you said. I feel like, when I observed your journey, I definitely agree with you. I think, and I don't know, I think it was for work, but also human design. I agree with you that allowed you to almost be more unapologetic about who you are. Whereas I feel like you always sensed and you were who you are. But I feel like sometimes you might have downplayed or people pleased those around you. And, understanding again that, and both of you, by the way, you're not designed to work. But I released a podcast with Kat, my human design mentor, today, so you can listen to that and have a laugh. Where she talks about projectors and manifestors. They're like, manifestors can initiate and not finish, and projectors should not work. Obviously, it's generalized, right? It's more nuanced than that. But I feel like, with a manifest, I even remember so vividly when you told the story once, Catherine, about how your husband is in the military and how certain even his friends who are in the military, they would sometimes almost feel intimidated by you, or they would stop speaking when you enter the room, right? And that's a very manifestor energy. It's like without us knowing, we come in and there is certain presence that people can be intimidated by. And I think understanding what that is about, you're not rude, you're not antisocial, your energy is different. It's meant to impact people. So I think knowing that, accepting that, it really can become such a game changer in the way that we show up in the daily lives. And I guess, Catherine, that's what you're referring to.
I have been told by like some of my friends, like their boyfriends, like we're close and stuff like that, but they'd just be like, "You just intimidate me," and I'm just like, "Why?" Like I'm just sitting here, like I'm not doing anything. I do have like this confidence, like of me. I don't know if that's just like a manifestor thing. We have talked about that before. I do have like this part of me where I honestly I do not care what people think, but sometimes, like you said, throughout that journey, it's just more of like hiding that, kind of like the people pleasing, like, oh, okay, like I think this is what they want. Like, let me just kind of go with this, but it just doesn't feel right doing that. The one thing that really caught me with human design was that I just like to inform people and I don't really ask for like the permission. And I was like, that is me to a T. Like I'm never just like, oh, do you think I can do this? Do you think I can do that? I'm always just like, hey, I'm doing this. Hey, like I'm gonna do this. I'll let you know how it turns out.
And I think, yeah, for you as well, I think your authority is emotional, correct? Right.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what you said, where I'm like giving myself time and space to really sleep on things and feel things out before saying yes. Because again, we are so, again, in corporate world, Alexis, you probably feel that too. I definitely felt that. we're rewarded for being decisive and being quick, and not all of us are designed to actually be able to be quick and make quick decisions. It's against our design. It's very unhealthy. So really nurturing that emotional authority, which you have, which is the deepest authority, which is so beautiful. It's so clear what if you give yourself enough space to actually get to the bottom of it. So I feel like making decisions with your body like that, I've seen can be like such a game changer for people as well. But I love it. I love it. Okay, I don't know. I feel like the energy is taking me to talk about your businesses now. I don't know. Is there anything else about like the process where you wanted to share or that was interesting? But one question I did have for you, because it's interesting to talk about the groups in general and the dynamic within the group. So our group was quite small, like everyone got attention, and I know some of you really connected. What was it like for you being around other career changers? Was it helpful or sometimes was it distracting?
Yeah, I actually loved having the group container because I felt like it really, one was so supportive. I feel like I had a relationship with every single person who was in our group. And Laura was my accountability buddy, and we would text every week. But even outside of that, if I found something that I was reminded of for someone, I would send them, if it was a podcast or something on social media. And I think it's also helpful too to hear what everyone else is going through while you're going through it, um, because it's such a unique experience. And if you don't have other people in your life who are going through the same thing, then it's hard to almost like make it feel more concrete and grounded. So it's nice to be able to go on that journey with other people, especially women who are, you know, very intuitive and spiritual as well. So I feel like that was huge for me, being around other women who were into the same type of things and also on the same journey, and just having that level of support from like different females who are going through the same questions around career, because it's tricky, right? Like not everyone knows exactly what they want to do. I will say a challenging aspect for me is someone who's so opening. If people were having an emotional day, it would really affect me after the calls, and I would have to go and clear because I'm like, oh, these emotions aren't mine. I wasn't upset today. If someone's having a hard day, figuring out what their next steps are. But that was the only downside for me. Other than that, it was all positive.
Thank you. I didn't think of that. Yeah, of course. You would be affected by other people's emotions. Hmm. Catherine, what about you? Obviously, as a manifestor, I told you you're already at a disadvantage because you should be leading groups,
I
not be
know.
part of the group.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I love that it was small because I've been in other groups where it's just been so big. And, being a manifestor, I like to go first or like one of the first. And in those groups, I would not be. And I would just start getting so frustrated to the point where I was like, I just want to leave this group. Like this is doing nothing for me. It was just so helpful, especially you like recognizing that in each of us, like what was best for us. Like that was amazing. But it was also so nice because I wasn't able to like really voice what I was trying to think or like going through. And then here I am like with these women. It's like you almost find a little piece of yourself in every person in that group. And I thought that was extremely unique because, who puts together like, these random strangers across the world and all of a sudden it was like, wow, like we get each other. Like and that's to me, that's what was amazing.
I
Yeah.
want to add, it definitely felt very therapeutic as well, because as we're all going through these big emotions and feelings, it was cathartic each week to log on to our Zoom call and just share the experiences we were going through and openly listen to each other and hear everyone else's perspective. So after our calls, many times I felt like, oh my God, that was like the most amazing therapy session in a sense, especially in the beginning as we were learning so much about ourselves, and it was much more of like an introspective process. So I love that.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I agree with you. But then again, that's a testament to law of attraction, right? That's how we can have a room of complete strangers and different, walks of life, different age, even different countries. We had couple of who were not from the US. And I always say that to people. And that's why sometimes I like to keep the group small for that reason, for the safety, emotional safety, because my hope is always that someone can come for a check-in on that group call and be completely vulnerable and open and honest. And if there is no safety, we won't be able to do that. because we will feel like someone is perhaps judging me or have opinions, or like that person like in the corner on my Zoom screen, I know that she's having thoughts about me. So then I will close up and I won't feel like I can really share, and then I won't get the most out of the process. So thank you for affirming that. I sense that as well. And like I said, each cohort is so different. And it's so fun for me as a facilitator to see how like the dynamics between these groups, but they're always links. They're always like, oh my gosh, you living my life, or like, oh my gosh, I had the same family or the same trauma. And to Catherine, to your point, we do have a lot of those blind spots and unconscious blocks. And sometimes we don't have words for them, or we don't understand what is happening. So I feel like when we sometimes listen to other people being coached or share, it does open things up for us and bring some of the unconscious into the conscious, where you can then name it and be like, oh, it's a thing, or oh, it's a pattern that I actually have as well. So that's how I love group. But I agree with you. The medicine can also become poison for me personally as well. In the past, if the group is too big, it's poisonous for me. To your point, Catherine, as a manifestor, I'd be like, bored now. No one asked what I think. So I think I'm just going to log out. Right? It's like,
Yeah, because that's how I feel in other groups. I'm just like, oh, this is so boring. This isn't doing anything for me. I'm gonna go. It's so true.
it's just the mechanics. It's not being mean. It's not being bitchy. It's just the mechanics for some of us. I'm curious about you, Alexis, because you sometimes would also be waiting for some time to check in. What was that like for you?
For me personally, I think in the beginning, I'm someone who has to acclimate, and then I feel more comfortable speaking up and going first. In the beginning, I kind of would sit back and listen to what everyone else had to say. And then you were very conscious of us projectors, and you would invite us. There was three of us, and you would say, okay, like, do you have anything to share? But once we kind of got more integrated into the process and I was acclimated to the group, I felt comfortable like raising my hand, because I think I also have that tendency too, where in a large group I get a little impatient as well. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I want to go. Like I might want one or two people to go in front of me, but then I'm like, okay, my turn. So yeah, it was very nice that you were able to pick up on all of our different designs and let us kind of sit with that. Yeah.
It's an experiment, right? Just like human design is, like that was an experiment for all of us participating as well, what it felt like. Cool. Okay, let's talk about what you guys are creating. I feel like that's the most interesting part. One of the things I feel like for both of you that could be true is maybe even more for Catherine. And I guess one of the challenges that you had before you started with launching a business is because you had these beautiful pillars, core pillars that almost were inviting you to go several different directions. And so if I can name them, and I'll ask you to add to that, like one of them was a creative piece, a creative entrepreneur, and you liking design and color and interiors. And then I feel like there's also a side of you that is kind of a teacher, a supporter, someone who sees and empowers people. And I feel like in the more, I will use the human design term, the homogenized or more conventional world, someone would advise you to go either or. So either go into more sort of healing support coaching, perhaps, which all of that we considered, or go design. And what we found, I feel like the truth for you would be to somehow find business models and ideas that are completely unique to you that would allow you to lean into both. Can you share a little more about your experience with really making space for those aspects of you and believing that this could be a business? Because sometimes it's really hard to be like, well, no one else is doing it. Who am I to do this?
It's funny when you say like it was different directions, because I was like that for a while, where just really picking out the pieces and like tying them in together. My pillars were like empowerment was I like to just empower people, give them that confidence. Then it was the creative, the organization, and the freedom. And freedom was just, I think, a huge part of it, because I've always liked my freedom, always, and bring that into a business aspect. So when we worked through all the pillars of what really was like my core of what I wanted to do, that's what really helped, I guess, help me understand that creative was just more of where I needed to go, but it wasn't in the traditional sense. It was just trying to figure out, how am I going to create a business that really resonates with me, but it's not going to be my traditional business for like interior design or things like that. And that's what we had to work through and kind of figure out what was the best avenue for me. I thought it was beautiful the way that Kat, when we did the reading, the astrology reading, the way that she was trying to put it into words, she was like, you're almost creating a space for somebody, but like you're elevating it. It's like you're lifting them up in some sense. And that's where like the traditions, life transitions started happening in that. It was exciting, but it wasn't really making sense to where it is now, like the whole life transitions. The more I got into it, and then all of a sudden it just clicked one day, just I wanted to help women create these intentional spaces in new life transitions, whether they are new moms or they're changing careers or they're moving, which was just a huge part of what I was going through at the time too. And we talked about even like empty nesters. And it was creating a very unique part of interior styling for these life transitions because I have gone through so many. For some reason, it didn't click to me at the time where I have gone through so many just through education, through careers, through, military, through, becoming a mom. And so I've gone through so many, and it's something that I can really resonate with people feeling of being lonely and stuck and overwhelmed and disconnected, even just from your home, your identity, your energy. We really honed down in interior styling for homes and for or spaces, whatever it may be. And because your feelings when you come home really need to resonate with you and just make you feel calm. Because even like with Alexis saying, like when you come home, you're just exhausted from whatever you're going through that day, and just being able to come home and just feeling that space is you. I mean, it just can really just transform how you think and how you feel at the end of the day.
I'm so obsessed with that. And I feel like it's such a genius niche. And again, I'm sure there are people who are doing a version of this, but I don't see that a lot because you either see interior designers or people who want to, create mood boards and style, or you see people who are kind of more in a healing, supportive role with therapy, coaching, and all of that. And I feel like what you were talking about, and it's so beautiful as well. And I see that so many times with career changers, is that aligned career usually sits on the shoulders of your own challenges. So whatever you are going through and kind of had to experience through life, a lot of the times has been preparation for you or your university to be able to support others. And I feel for you, and it's so common, Catherine, it's not just you, people will be like, oh, like, how did I not see that myself before? But it's almost like we need to go through the whole process and connect the dots to be able to understand is like, it makes perfect sense. None of that was random.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was um because with interior design, I have been into that since I was little. I mean, just picking out, I was the one in my family with like the purple walls, the bright pillows. Like I was so into decorating my room. The more that I started to realize that throughout this process, it was like, oh my gosh, like that would be something that I would absolutely love to do. And working with Rebecca right now, it's a feeling that I've never experienced before. I'm literally so excited to get up in the morning and just be like, oh my gosh, like, what are we going to do with her room today? It's such an excitement that I've never had in any career or job that I've ever had. Usually before it's like I'm laying in bed and I'm just like, okay, I need to get up. I need to get myself dressed. I need to get to the office. Like, no excitement whatsoever. But now it's an excitement that's just indescribable. It's so much fun. I could literally sit down all day just designing what I need to do. And it's just so natural and easy.
Wow. That's what alignment feels like. And I think I told to all of you, right? You'll know when you're landing there is just because it feels expensive and it's like almost the day job becomes such an inconvenience because you're like, I just want to do this 24/7. Like I don't want to do anything else. This is kind of my jam. And also, what a gift to your clients, for both of you who will be working with you, to experience someone who believes in what they do so much, lives, breathes, like literally is an embodiment of them. And the service that you provide is going to be life changing for them, even if it's just design. Or like, someone would say, oh, it's just tiling a room. And it would be so much more because of who you are and because it's an extension of essentially your essence. Alexis, what about you? Can you share a little more about what you have landed into that you're exploring now? Because it's also a really cool story. And there were a little bit of pivots along the way as well.
Yeah, so for me, as we mentioned before, I definitely had an idea of what I wanted to do. So I think the process, we had so much introspection that was so helpful. And I'm someone who loves to be introspective. And like I mentioned before, I love self-development. So that was so much fun doing all these different, like quizzes and figuring out our different life path numbers and our I'm trying to think what else we did. The astrology readings, the human design. There was so much introspectiveness that it felt like validation because every time I would do that type of work, I would understand, okay, I'm definitely being called to do something that's more towards my spiritual path. And like I mentioned, I work in a corporate environment, and a big part of getting into spiritual work for me was I was feeling a lot of anxiety. Um, and this was one way that I learned how to move through it. So by utilizing different crystals, when I became a manager of like four direct reports, I started heavily relying on meditation. And that was something that was a huge game changer for me. And then also, just prepping myself before meetings too by different like rituals that I would use or like giving myself energy healing. So that's really where I felt called to do that. But I also felt like I don't want to directly do energy healing on people per se. I felt like it was much bigger than that. It wasn't just physically working on people. I knew that there was going to be some type of coaching, teaching element. So what I came up with is I want to have a spiritual coaching business where I'm able to coach one-on-one clients, but also hold like monthly group calls and have different group coaching and trainings and teachings and teach the basics of spirituality and different grounding techniques and energetic hygiene, and which is something I'm so passionate about because even at work, that's like one of my favorite topics to talk about. And it lights me up so much. I've been told so many times by different people I work with and different friends that as soon as I start talking about that, you just see a shift in my body and the light on my face. Like I could sit there for hours just talking about people's different experiences and coming up with different ways to problem solve on how to help them. And it was funny too, going back to the teaching aspect. I always tend to become the person who's training people at work on certain things, whether it's different systems or tools that we use. And I remember I held a training session for a huge group of our people within our company. And afterwards, I got so many compliments, and I was told, "Oh my gosh, you would be a great teacher." And at first, this is before I was even into this type of work, I was almost offended because I'm like, "I'm not a teacher, I'm a businesswoman. This is not what I went to school for." So, but afterwards, now that we've done the process and I've done more of the introspective work, I realized I absolutely love teaching people and training people. And it doesn't just mean like education training, that type of teaching. But yeah, teaching them how to really become in alignment with themselves and how to get out of ruts. Because I think that's something that I can really identify with is when I feel stuck and then using these tools to kind of give myself the momentum to move forward and really step into alignment with my higher self. And that's what I'm looking to help others do essentially, just step into alignment with your higher self.
Thank you for sharing about the teaching because I feel like people who light workers who do have a teacher archetype, they all react in a similar way because the first association is school and be like, I don't want to teach kids. Like, no, you don't have to. This is a different kind of teaching. I just haven't found the word to explain it. But I feel like you are, I'm launching this course and I haven't taught you that in the group, but you're a mix of a teacher and a mystic archetype. So a lot of the times it's not just one. And again, the mistake is where a lot of mystics, the more spiritual people will do, they will just run with one archetype. Be like, okay, I'm mystic, I'm a spiritual, I need to like, meditate and do energy work. But I feel like you have both. So a big piece for you and I discussing the business model, and I know that we'll still discuss a little more, is to create a business that allows you to lean into both. And I feel like sometimes maybe even the teacher is stronger in you. So make sure that you're teaching, but not losing the mystic and vice versa. And to your point, is an acceptance journey of be like, oh, actually, well, I may deny it, or my head doesn't like it. But I feel like it's just understanding really like the multidimensionality and all the layers in each archetype. And I hear that, Alexis, that you've done that. So that's beautiful. I would love to ask you as well, what are you currently working, each of you currently working on? And are there maybe some offers that you have that people could check out? And obviously, all the details are going to be in the show notes, but could you walk us through what you're excited about right now and what are you creating?
Sure. So I launched my Instagram. The handle is it's Alexis Mila. So you can follow me there to learn different spiritual tricks and just hear about my journey as I'm going through different things. Recently, I've been really into exploring tarot decks. So I'm definitely going to bring that towards the Instagram, different things with astrology, obviously energy work. And then I'm also going to be launching a podcast called The Wellness Rolodex. And funny enough, that idea was born one because I love podcasts. I probably listen to about like three every single day. I'm obsessed with them. I love listening and absorbing information, especially because I have such a long commute. So that really gives me something to do, and I love learning. So I felt really called to do something where I'm able to create my own and become a resource for everyone so they can understand different tips, tricks, modalities, different spiritual teachers or different health practitioners that they can look towards. And I came up with the name actually because it happened the same exact week. I was at work and I was talking to someone about the issues they were going through, and I was recommending all these different modalities and all these different practitioners they could see, and they looked at me and they said, you are just like a wellness Rolodex. And then later that weekend I was at a friend's house talking to my friend and her husband, giving them advice, telling them what crystals I would recommend and who they should go see and all this stuff. And then her husband turned around and said, you're like a wellness Rolodex. And I was like, wow, okay, I love this for me. And that's where the podcast name came from. So that'll be launching soon. You'll see details on my Instagram. And then as far as my offerings go, I'm doing a pilot right now for a one-on-one 6-week coaching program. So that'll be the signature program where we go through and identify essentially something that's really tailored to the person's needs and what their goals are and what they're going through at the moment. So it's really using my intuition to tap into what I see that is coming up for them that would help benefit them for the process. And then also working with them to understand what areas they want to grow in. So because I have that corporate background, I'm really leaning into helping coaching people who also are in corporate and looking to navigate and elevate themselves in leadership or handling anxiety, and also bringing in astrology, human design, spiritual hygiene, because that's a huge one, especially, before big presentations or meetings, or if you're around your boss and he or she might have really chaotic energy that day and you just need to clear. So really helping people towards that. And then eventually I'm going to launch some type of monthly membership for group teachings. So more to come.
Love that. Oh, I have no doubt about it. And I also really appreciate the fact that you're leaning into sort of the audience. I feel like that you really understand because you've been it. And again, like with coaching as well, a lot of the times we want to lean on something that we've lived, similar to Catherine, for you as well, because even though you bring in a lot of knowledge, understanding, and intuition from more spiritual or self-help wellness perspective, but you also speak the language of the corporate. So in that way, right, you can really become the bridge for people, and especially for those who perhaps like you are in that spiritual closet and they haven't come out yet. But they really need that sort of support that, again, in a lot of official corporate HR trainings, you won't get that type of support. By the way, why not? I really would love for someone to advocate for HR to do a presentation on energy clearing. Why is it not a thing? I hope it's a thing somewhere, maybe in some startups. Alexis, can you make it a thing?
Well, that's something I actually want to work on. And I've had like downloads that I'm supposed to take certain groups within my corporate role and teach them some of these things. So I do envision future workshops where I'll go to different companies and give them a presentation of a training on how to incorporate these different things. Because I think one of the hardest things that I find too is not everyone's in touch with almost tailoring their leadership towards their people. And I think that's one of the biggest misses too. Like you need to be able to tune into your audience and understand what they need and really lead from a place of empathy. And we live in such a masculine world right now. And I know that's shifting, and we are going to see like a lot more feminine leadership come into play, a lot more people who are becoming more embodied. And I'm excited for that. And I'm really hoping to help lead the charge with that as well, because I think that's so important for not only the people who are, doing the everyday work, but also the leaders to understand how important it is to implement these different practices. So that's definitely something I have on my radar.
Yeah. What? Well, I need to hold back and not coach you now, but my question would be like, why not start where you are and why not start with your current leadership and see if you could offer something?
That's my plan, actually.
Yeah.
So I am planning on doing that. And I've done a lot of that. I'm actually really lucky because my manager is very open to the things that I do. I send him energy healing all the time, especially if he's sick or not feeling well. So he's super open to it. And a bunch of the people that I work with, they're into crystals and all that stuff too. The person that I'm piloting the program with is the person that I'm piloting my one-on-one coaching with actually works with me. So
Mhm.
I have people who are very open to it. So it is something that I'm going to start off with there, and then
Yeah.
obviously use my connections for people who've gone to different companies, and then just kind of bring the workshop there as well.
Amazing. You go, girl. I love it. We need more of you in the corporate. We need to infiltrate it and change it from within. That's what we need to do that. Amazing. Catherine, what about you? What are some of the offers that you're working on that you like to share?
So I working on two. So I have like a little mini one and my bigger one. So my mini one is if you don't want like a whole working through like each step of like designing a room. So the first one is everybody always gets a questionnaire and you get a meeting with me. So it's one-on-one because I want to get to know you. I wanted to know what transition you're going through, what design you like, what colors, things like that to get you to know you more. And so, what the first one is, I'll be creating a mood board and a color board, styling tips, and a source list of where I think would be really good for you to maybe purchase things if that's like aligned with you, if that's what you need. And so that's the smaller one. And then the bigger one is still the same process in the beginning, but then we take it really into detail. We go into specifics, furniture, your lighting, the accents, your decor, things like that really go into more detail. And I walk you through everything from there. And we have meetings throughout. And then at the end, you have the final vision of what the room could look like. And then you get your support afterwards from that. I plan on launching these in the fall, but I will be looking for at least 2 to 3 more people to work with just to refine my process and things like that before I launch from there. And then later on, just thinking of bigger things, thinking bigger. I've never thought of, I've always thought small. So it's going to be thinking bigger down the road from there.
Like what? Like tell.
Doing my own product line. So
Yeah.
I want that. Yeah. I am pillow obsessed. If you know me, or I could have pillows just everywhere. So I definitely want to work on that. And we have talked about possibly like a down the road unpacking, designing type of service, which started to really form when we were moving. We moved from Arizona to Missouri. And I just thought like, oh my gosh, like that would just be a perfect service, just like a one and all done for you type of thing. So thinking about that idea and how I would do that. So hopefully like that would be down the road. Those two things I plan on doing. So that, takes more time to think of. But
Mm,
yeah, like something like that.
love. So many questions. Okay,
Yeah.
first of all, a comment. Um, I love that you, and again, that's something you and I also like fleshed out together is phasing what you're launching. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of a tidbit for those who are listening. When you are launching something that's super unique and doesn't quite exist, it can be so overwhelming because you're like, I have all of these ideas, but how do I actually start building and launching? So, really constraining yourself and getting super clear and phasing it out. Be like, okay, so phase one, let me just start with these like two offers. Then, when I feel like I'm confident, when I'm generating income, when I understand my market and my people, and I feel like it's habitual for me to show up in that capacity and identity, let me add the next level and perhaps look into products or that moving and unpacking kind of piece, right? Whereas a lot of people would see all of them and you'd be like, let me do a little bit of unpacking business, let me do a little bit, let me create one product, let me see if I can work with someone to style, and then they're sitting there and be like, there's no business. I'm like, yes, because we need to start with one piece and implement it. So see that it's fully functioning before we add the next one. But obviously, I say that loosely because you still need to follow your authority and make sure you're not too rigid. But I'm just saying, like, level it out. And that's what I'm hearing you're doing, and Alexis as well. So it's not too overwhelming.
I remember when the topic first came up with the whole moving thing, and I was like, that's overwhelming. Like that's too much for me right now. The thing that I also learned was I wasn't thinking big enough. It was always very small scale, like, okay, like what can I do in my little tiny corner that's not going to be like too louder? And I just realized that's not me. And I need to think big because that's where my creativity is at its best. So that's when we talked about, okay, maybe we do a product line first, and then we move into building that audience, building that community, and then moving into my even bigger project from there.
And I love that. And for some people, and I think both of you have the same pattern, notice if that's true for you, where it's almost like easier to dream big and then achieve those goals than it is to be reasonable. And I feel like there are two types of people. For some, they need to be dream small, reach it, and prove to themselves that they can. But for others, like small goal is just not juicy enough and doesn't excite them enough to be moving. So I feel like both of you had that. Where like, yeah, let's go big. Let's go big. Let's build an empire. Thank you. They're both nodding. You can't see that.
Yeah, no, I'll say that definitely resonates for me because even before, and that's why this process was so important for me because I'm someone who really needs structure. I have a Virgo moon, so that's very important to me. And I get these like downloads for these big like visions, these grand ideas, and I just didn't know the steps to put in place in order to get to the vision that I'm seeing. So this process has been instrumental to that because I think so big. And then I overwhelm myself with what the next steps are. I remember in like the very first thought download we did, I think I was talking about like, I want to start a business, but I don't know any lawyers and all this stuff. And Vilma was just like, okay, one step at a time. We need clarity on what your business looks like. Forget about the lawyers. So I think this is really a great way to understand like the different small steps to take to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do want to add to definitely the small steps because, especially for me, when I generate like these big ideas, you then start thinking like, okay, but I need this, I need a lawyer, I need the contracts, I need to make sure that this is okay, that's okay, and that you really want everything to be perfect. But the reality is that nothing's going to be perfect. So you might as well just take those baby steps and everything will just start falling into place. You know, when you need maybe a lawyer to come in to look at some stuff, that will come in when the time is needed. And I think that can be very daunting when you are starting a business because your mind automatically goes into, oh my gosh, I need all of it right now. Like I need to do everything. For me, it was social media was a big hurdle for me. And I'm still trying to find my voice through social media, but it was taking those baby steps of just posting, a little bit here, doing stories a little bit there, and just getting through those hurdles. And then once I find like my voice with that, things will just start flowing. And then I can move on to the next thing and then the next thing after that.
I wanted to say, Catherine, I've been loving. I saw your post recently. Like I love your reels. Like you're doing an amazing job, both of you.
I know, Alexis, you've been giving me
Everyone
like,
is telling me, Alexis. Everyone in the group said Alexis is my inspiration for
yeah,
content. You
here,
know
she's
that?
definitely my I'm
That
just
is
like,
so sweet. Thank you guys. But I have to say that we really all show up for each other on social media because like we're each other's first comments, first likes. Every time I see one of the girls posting, I just have to comment. I have to like it. I like the stories. And it's just motivating and exciting. And especially like I did a series of like questions too for my stories, like an ask me anything. And it was majority of like the women in the group who were asking questions, which was so thoughtful and nice because we all need to stick together as we build our communities. It's so important.
Alexis, I also want to share, if you don't mind, one of the pieces, the perfectionistic piece that you mentioned. Remember when we also worked with you and everyone else that's relevant, how like done is better than perfect. And your, minus C, sorry, your minus C, what you think is not imperfect work is someone A plus work because of such high standards that all of you have for yourself. Can you share a little more
Yeah.
about that? Because that's something we can all relate to.
Absolutely. That's something I really, yes, that's definitely something I had to work through in the process. I'm such a perfectionist, and that can almost like stop me from moving forward and taking action. So for me, my motto became just take messy action. And, getting it done is better than not starting at all. So that was something that I really had to like lean into. It doesn't need to be perfect, just start doing it. And even with the Instagram, like I had a whole like mind map of content ideas and everything that I wanted to do. And I was able to get like through a couple weeks of like planning, but then after that, I kind of just had to like release the control. Again, it's that Virgo moon that really drives the perfectionism. But I had to release control and just kind of do what felt good and creative and kind of what was coming up in the moment. And I found that like when I'm posting stuff that I'm like really going through and it's really coming like deep from within, I get so much more interaction and I see so many people liking it, commenting it, sharing it on their stories than if it's just some like random post that I feel like is inspirational and I should be posting it. So it's really just like letting go of that perfectionist mindset. Even with formulating my one-on-one coaching, before I went into it, I created like for my 6 sessions what the structure would look like. And I really just kind of like moved it around and pivoted as I've gone through each session with the person I'm testing it with because it's not about being perfect. It's really about just going through it and experiencing it. And that's kind of how you get to refine it as you're getting the feedback. So that was definitely something that I had to release control over and just accept. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. What I put out is going to be good enough and I'm going to evolve over time. And, that's okay. And just accepting that and knowing that I'm putting out the best work that I can in the moment and I'll continue to improve each time.
And also, what is perfect? When do we
Yeah.
know when we reach that perfection point? Because every day you can come back to the same post and change it like for months, for years, even the same post. So the question then becomes, is it true in this moment? Do I feel connected with what I'm sharing, to your point? And that will always probably get more engagement because people can feel the energy through the post and your words. And that's what draws them in. Of course, not to say that sometimes you want to plan ahead or you want to, you do want to have maybe for you, Alexis, will be finding that middle ground between, okay, I have a little bit of a rough idea of what I'm going to post, but also giving myself space to be more spontaneous and kind of allow myself to channel through whatever needs to come out today. And really, the only way for both of you to find it is trial and error. And again, we go back at this point to stage that a lot of career changers will try to avoid is taking action because a lot of it is very uncomfortable. Like what Catherine just said, doing a voiceover on Reel. I really didn't want to do it. But also, the only way for you to get over that fear and collect data is to do it and allow it to be imperfect and not delete it after you post. Okay, cool. This is really fun. Catherine, a few questions I also had for you, just so the listeners could understand as well. So basically, what could be some situations or people who could reach out to you for some support? So, for instance, you already mentioned, say, empty nesters who suddenly find themselves with a lot of space and they feel like they want to like maybe recreate the energy and the color scheme or whatever the design in their house. People who are moving, maybe people who got a divorce. I know that can be also very painful. That's a big life transition. Are there any other examples that kind of you can give for people so they could identify and understand a little better?
Yeah, those are some great examples. And another one that I can really resonate with is like a new mom. And I was a new mom and we moved from, it was Mississippi to Arizona. So our daughter was 2 months old, maybe 2 months old, I think. And so just going from being like a new mom, postpartum, going through all of that, and then you're in like this new space. You're uncomfortable in like every sense of the way. And so anybody like that, even if it's just a small corner, even if it's just your nightstand, just making something that's you and that's comfortable, it doesn't have to be anything big. And even in like career transitions, maybe you're getting your first high paying job, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you went from a high paying job to a low paying job.
Which is so beautiful because, again, I feel like it's such a great concept because a lot of the times when we think about, getting styling or, hiring a designer, we think big projects, we think blueprints, we think houses, we think full apartments, but really it doesn't have to your point. It could be like a room or like a new like workplace. A lot of the times I will recommend, and I did for you when you're working on your new career, have like a separate desk if you can, like completely separate color scheme and sense, and make it like this new little corner for the career. And that's something like that, I guess you could also help people with, right? It doesn't have to be massive.
A lot of the times you can use just what you have. Maybe it's just adding in, maybe it's just one different type of color pillow or like a throw. It could be very minimal most of the time.
Okay, so if there are people who are listening who would love to work with you, both of you, we will have all of the links at the show notes, to your socials and also to your offers. And I'd love to finish with the question that I ask every single career changer who comes on the podcast, which is, what would be the advice that you would either give to your past self before starting the process and career change, or just others who perhaps are you, 5 or 6 months ago? What would you advise them?
Honor your own timeline, because I think we all put so much emphasis on like rushing and trying so hard to get from point A to point B. But there's also a lot of wisdom and learning that needs to happen in between. And I think a lot of times too, we have to go through these different experiences to get us to where we're supposed to go. So I think it's really just having that patience with yourself, giving yourself grace, and just honoring your own timeline, and knowing that you're going to end up where you're meant to be.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Trust the process, trust the timeline. Like that's the mantra. What about you, Catherine?
Yeah, I agree. It's being patient with yourself. Every step throughout your life is going to lead you to somewhere else, whether how great it is, how bad it is, that's what's going to shape you to where you're going. Because like when I was in my 20s, I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, I need a career by the time I'm 30, and then I'm here when I'm 40, and then when I'm 50. But that's not life. Things change in life. And I think it's just being patient with yourself and listening to that inner voice. And if it's telling you to do something, then go on that journey, find out what it is. It may take you years, like it did for me. And that's okay. It's just everything's going to lead you to where you need to be. You're going to go through those bad experiences. And like I said, those good ones. But that's what's really going to help you in your next decade of life.
Yes. And I love that you mentioned, both of you mentioned the timing and also the age, because I hear like this is one of the biggest gremlins that I hear all the time. And it doesn't even matter what the actual age is. So I have people who are in the 20s, they say like, it's too late for me. Now I'm laughing, but I remember when I was 26, 25, or 26, I'm like, my life is over. I'm so old. Like, I haven't figured myself yet. Like, I'm a loser, right? We use that against ourselves. And I have people in the 30s, or like Catherine, you mentioned, oh, 40, like by 40, I better be like all figured out, right? But then in our group, we have people in the 50s, who are changing careers and they're thinking, oh, retire, career change. Yes, why not? I worked with people in their 70s. So really, it's never, never too late, but it's about that acceptance of like, okay, I had that life, but also doesn't have to be the rest of my life. And if I'm feeling some of these symptoms that the girls shared of misalignment, it's my responsibility. I owe it to myself to explore what else is available. And if nothing happens, I can still go back to what I have now. That is always a backup plan that we can lean on. I love it. Thank you so much. It was such an honor to observe both of your journeys, the way that they've unfolded. And also, thank you so much for being open and really leaning into this process. It's not always easy. We would always laugh that it's like ups and downs. Like one week you're coming in for check-in and you're on top of the world. The next week you're crying, you're in your period. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, but really just still continuing to show up for yourself, for the girls in the group, but also for your future selves. And that's how you were able to get to the place where you are at. And always tell to all of my clients, like, you've done so much and you've achieved so much. And at the same time, it's just the beginning for what's available for you if you continue following your intuition, following your authority, and really coming back to the blueprint and continuing to make those aligned decisions. Like, the world is your oyster. So thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you. And thank you for being such an amazing like steward in the entire process and really holding space for us and guiding us through it because you're obviously instrumental to the whole thing. So amazing job on your end. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. It's you you are so unique and just able to really understand and let us go through what we want to go through and give us advice that maybe we don't want to hear, but ultimately it's what's going to be the best for us. To me, that takes such a strong person to be able to say that and let us feel what we want to feel and just say, okay, but we really need to do this. Like push us out of our comfort zone because that's what we need.
I appreciate you seeing that part of me. I think it's really the reason why this process I think is interesting is that we start with very dreamy and feminine. We all sense that when what Alexis mentioned is very introspective, and we're dreaming and we're doing career readings and astrology and all of that. And then I feel like we change the gears and we're like, okay, now we're going to build. Now that we have this, let's launch, let's build, let's put ourselves out there. And it's a little bit of a whiplash. I'm like, oh, hold on, I was in this beautiful la la land and now I need to build. But I feel like that's what life is. And that's what aligned business a lot of the times is learning how to navigate both worlds. Whereas usually we are either stuck in the dreamy world, like what Alexis, you beautifully said, like I have downloads, I have visions, but I don't quite know how to get there. Or we're stuck on the other spectrum where like we're taking all of this random chaotic action. We're only in the masculine and we didn't take enough time to really ground and understand what the vision is and what alignment looks like. So I feel like this process is really like a small reflection of what aligned life looks like, where we're really navigating the both worlds. So now that we started with the feminine, finished with the masculine. I feel like hopefully now you're learning how to merge the two in your daily life as well, and knowing when do I need to create and rest and when do I need to actually build and launch or release that reel that feels uncomfortable.
I always think if I didn't go through this process, how would I be feeling? The way that I was feeling before this probably would have intensified by this point right now. And I always think of what if I didn't make this transition, how would have been feeling. And it's just always just so wonderful thinking that I took this leap. I ended up listening to that, my inner self, and really going for it. And now it's just going to be a complete 180 by the time I get to this point next year.
Please. Can do a follow-up in a couple of years to see where you're both at. But thank you again. Thank you so much. And thank you to the listeners. I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you enjoyed this content, please make sure you subscribe to this podcast and leave a quick review to help us share the message of aligned work with the world. And if you'd like to learn more about how to find and transition into your very own purpose-led career or business that feels like getting paid for being yourself, make sure you check out the episode notes below. Have a wonderful week.